So we may as well start the meeting.
There you go, Kyle. You're all
And
set.
Thank you.
Open the meeting at, according to my watch here, it's 7:01. And due to the COVID-19 outbreak and in compliance with the various emergency orders, the Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, who has banned public gatherings, the town Dartmouth office building has been closed, and therefore this meeting is being held remotely. And it is accessible for live interaction by the public, and they can do so by joining the Zoom meeting. It's on our agenda, and there's an ID and a password as well. That being said, I want to just start by essentially confirming a member access, and it should state that as a preliminary matter, we're confirming that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda were notified of the Zoom meeting, can be present, and if present, can hear us. In addition to that, they can participate by the raise your hand button. So we know who's here on staff. If the staff would just identify themselves.
Mike O'Reilly.
Richard Goldman.
Richard Mallon.
Joe Burke.
Kyle Ross.
Patty Swearduck.
Michael Kehoe. Okay. And if there's any anticipated speakers for tonight's meeting, if you want to just give us your name so we'll have you on the agenda. We'll just know that you're here. So anyone who wishes to speak tonight, if they would please state their name.
I don't know that I'll speak, but I'm here for the Chase Road item. My name's Pat Charos.
Thank you.
Same here. We're not sure if we're going to speak, but we're here for the 80 Slade's Corner Road.
Okay. And your name?
Name is Michael Diane Lowe.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, so now with my introduction, this open meeting of the Conservation Commission of the Town of Dartmouth is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, and that's due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth as a result of the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the virus, we've been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspended the requirement of open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Furthermore, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely, and that is what we have chosen to do. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as a reasonable public access is afforded so the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless the participation is required by law. This meeting will have a public comment feature. We are convening tonight by Zoom video, which is computer generated, and the login information was posted on the Conservation Commission agenda and also on the Conservation Commission portion of the town's website. This meeting is being recorded and the attendees are participating by video conferencing. Please be aware that other participants or viewers may be able to see and hear you, and anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. You have the option to turn off your video if you are participating via computer, and all participants should keep their microphones or phones muted unless recognized by the chair. That's me, to reduce the background noise and feedback. And that brings us to our ground rules. Before we go to the first item on the agenda, we have to know that I will recognize anyone who wishes to speak. And as a result, please, if you want to speak and you're a member of the public, there's a raise your hand feature. If you're one of the commissioners, just unmute yourself and I'll recognize you. I'm going to introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I'm going to ask either Mike O'Reilly, our Environmental Affairs Coordinator, or Mark Garrett, Assistant Environmental Affairs Coordinator, for their comments if they have any, and then the commissioners and the general public can speak. Please wait until your name is called before you, verbalize comments or questions or motions. Please remember to mute the phone when you're not speaking, and also to speak clearly and in a way that helps to generate accurate minutes. If you want to engage in discussion with other members, please, again, do so through the chair only, and we must take care in each instance to identify ourselves. That being said, I will also go with a roll call vote on each matter we vote upon. And that's because we can't verbally just say aye and not no, so we're going to go roll call. If anyone has a question about how we're going to proceed, I'm more than happy to entertain. If anyone has a problem hearing, please let us know. We'll do what we can. That being said, we're going to move now to our administerial. Any questions from anybody? Okay, seeing none. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes of the meeting of February 18, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
In favor?
Yep.
Do roll call vote, okay? Patty Swearda,
Yes.
Richard Mallon,
Yes.
Kyle Ross,
Yes.
Joe Burke,
Yes.
Richard Golan,
Yes.
Michael Kehoe, yes. And the future votes, we're still going to do roll call, okay? But I think what we might do in the future is try to figure out a mechanism we could do this without having to move the meeting along. In other words, do it a little quicker. But right now we're doing roll call. So the next is the approval of the field trip reports, and that's for the February 18, 2020 meeting. I'll entertain a
So
motion.
moved.
Second.
Roll call vote. Patty Swearda,
Yes.
Richard Mallon,
Yes.
Kyle Ross,
Yes.
Joe Burke,
Yes.
Richard Golan,
Yes.
Mike Kehoe, yes. That passed. Third was to receive the minutes of the meeting of April 8, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor would be Patty, starting roll call.
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Mike Kehoe, yes, that passes. We're now moving on to the field trip report. We have 5 of them. The first is a request for determination of applicability from Michael and Diane Lopes, who want to enlarge an existing single-family house for an enhanced kitchen area. That's adding, somebody say something here? An enhanced kitchen area that's adding a 10-foot by 12-foot deck and a fence within the riverfront area and in the 100-foot buffer zone on land located at map 28, lot 89, that's 80 Slades Corner Road. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this request, as you described, is for a small addition, small deck, and a fence in the riverfront area. There was a septic system that was recently approved for upgrade on this site. It's a very small project. I don't anticipate any negative impact and recommend the issuance of a negative determination.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, Patty?
Aye. Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Kyle?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Mike Kehoe, yes. That passes unanimously. For the applicants, negative is good, okay? Negative is a good thing. Second item is a continued request for determination of applicability for Robert and Jane Sylvia to confirm the wetland on land located at map 23, lots 48-1 and 48-2, and that's on Horse Neck Road. Motion to waive the reading?
Second.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, I'm not going to bother with all in favor. We the motion. Any opposition to that being allowed? No. Okay, let's go ahead. So, Mike.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this request for determination is for a wetland delineation verification. It's been continued several times. I had some questions about the base plan and some of the resource areas, and we have received a new plan that added additional resource areas that weren't originally shown on the plan, such as riverfront area and coastal bank. And those resource areas affect the site, and they are now complete on the plan. And the plan now, I think, reflects the conditions in the field. I'm happy with it at this point, and I recommend the issuance of a positive determination for the purposes of wetland delineation verification.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, that passes unanimously. Number 3 is a request for determination of applicability from Frank Scott Stevens for the subsurface sewage disposal system on land located at map 86, lot 11, that's 45 Shawn Avenue.
Make a motion, waive the reading.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. Mike?
This request, Mr. Chair, is for a septic system upgrade for a substandard septic system at the location. It is on the waterfront in Salters at North Shawn. The engineers, I think, did the best that they could on the site. It is clearly an upgrade to a substandard system, and so I don't anticipate any negative impact and recommend the issuance of a negative determination.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposition? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. Moving on to number 4, it's a request for a partial certificate of compliance for DEP file 15-123 for Miliano Dias PC at map 141, lot 160. That's 8 Country Club Boulevard. Mike?
Yeah, this request for partial certificate of compliance is for a lot way up at the top of the hill. And as you can see, it's a very old file. It was the original subdivision filing going back to the late 70s, I believe. And this lot is nowhere near any wetland. And so there are no problems with the lot or with the subdivision. So I recommend the issuance of a partial certificate of compliance.
So moved.
The second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. Going on to number 5, that's a request for a certificate of compliance for DEP file 15-2449. That's for Linda Burke at map 106, lot 17-1. That's 12 Salt Creek Road. And I guess, Joe, you'll recuse yourself on this vote.
Yes.
Mike?
Okay, yes, we do have a request for a certificate of compliance. There are actually 2 requests for certificates of compliance for the site. It's the same doc. One of the other one didn't end up on the agenda. But both of the certificates of compliance, we do have a letter from an engineer stating that the work was done in compliance. I've done several site visits on the site and in compliance. So I would recommend the issuance of a certificate of compliance for file 15-2449 and also for the other file. I don't have the file number because I couldn't access it, but it is a similar file number on the same doc. It was 2 different file numbers for the same doc. So I would recommend the issuance of a certificate of compliance for both of the orders of conditions that were requested in the certificate of compliance request from the engineer. And the engineer has certified that everything is in compliance.
Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, both requests are allowed unanimously. Moving now on to our public hearings. And the first is a public hearing for DEP file 15-2510. It's a notice of intent for Jason and Giselle Hutchins, who wish to construct a timber pier on land located at map 107, lot 19 on Smith Neck Road.
Make a motion with reading.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. There was a letter which our harbor master had submitted, and that letter was submitted to the engineer for the applicants today. The letter was actually sent out a little earlier than that, but it was sent to the applicants by this commission today. They've requested an extension as a result of that, an extension or continuance, so that they can address some of the concerns that were articulated in the letter. And that would be until our Tuesday, May 19th, 2020 meeting. So I'll entertain a motion on that request for a continuance.
Make
So
a
moved.
motion to continue until May 19th, 2020.
Second.
On that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. And by the way, Mr. Mello is here, and I want to thank him for the very thorough job on the review of the applications and the timely submittal of the report.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
You're all welcome. Thanks. Have a good night.
Right.
Night.
Good night,
Hey,
Steve.
Steve.
Well,
So number 2 is a public hearing, DEP file 15-2513. It's a notice of intent for V Corp LLC, wishing to construct a single-family house with associated driveway, grading, and utilities in the buffer zone on land located at map 42, lot 14-2, which is 408 Chase Road in Dartmouth.
Make a motion to waive the reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this, I actually have the plan on my screen, but I don't have screen sharing enabled. I don't know if DCTV, if you could enable my screen sharing, I could show the plan. But I see that, the applicant, Corey Medeiros, from is here.
Well, yeah, I'll have Mr. Medeiros, if he can get his, I was hoping we can get a plan shown on the screen. But with that being said, on behalf of the applicant, if they would introduce themselves, we can go forward.
On behalf of the B Corp LLC, Corey Medeiros from SciTech. We are here. Oh, everyone can still see me, I would imagine.
I can see you and I see our agenda. Oh, there it
There
goes.
we go.
There we
There's the
go.
plan.
There we go. Thanks.
All right, perfect. I have a highlighted copy of the plan in my window, but that plan will do fine. As you see on the plan, B Corp, who is the current owner, is proposing to construct the single-family home as shown on the plan. If you follow from where the single-family home is, down by this narrow portion, it opens up to where the septic system is. If you're looking at my plan, you'll see the wetlands line is green, the 100-foot buffer zone is yellow, the lot is highlighted in pink, as well as the associated construction. The wetlands line is previously approved. The portion of the construction that's going to be within the 100-foot buffer zone is this back portion of the deck, and then as well as the septic system, pump chamber, and the connection to the leaching field down here in the bottom corner, as well as some minor grading, this small little portion in the northeast corner of the lot. Silt fencing is going to be placed, as you can see, along the entire border. This is the previously approved Lot 3. So we're just going to maintain that silt fence until all of the disturbed areas have been stabilized. Other than that, if anyone has any questions.
Mike, I assume that either you or Mark have had an opportunity to review the application and the plans submitted, and if you have any comments, I'd be interested in hearing them.
Yes, we have, Mr. Chair. This is the last lot of this small subdivision. The original subdivision, had its own order of conditions, which was for the driveway connecting the two new lots and some drainage swales and whatnot. This is this is the continuation of the last lot of the single-family houses, and it's a pretty standard house, in the buffer zone. It's separated from the wetland on the towards Chase Road by the swale that was constructed as part of the original subdivision plan. And then there's a small wetland in the back that does kick out a bit of the zone. But this is pretty straightforward. It's a standard single-family house. It complies with the performance standards, so I'm okay with it.
Mr. Chairman, I concur. They built the house on lot 3, and now they're moving to lot 2. So it's consistent with what they've done in the past.
Thank you, Mike and Mark. Any commissioner have any questions of the applicant's engineer?
I do.
Go ahead, Patty.
What's the closest distance from, the edge of the house or any other building to wetland?
It's a 12-foot wide deck, so we're talking approximately over 75 feet.
Okay. That's the closest it comes? I'm having a hard time seeing.
Yes. Yeah, the 100-foot buffer zone is the only portion of construction that's going to be within the buffer zone is the deck, essentially at the back, at the rear of the house.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Is there any physical demarcation that'll be out there that'll separate lawn area from the wetland area or buffer zone?
Well, our feeling on that is there is already, if we first take the rear of the property, you have the existing lot that is already separated, that already separates us from the wetlands. And on the front of the house, it is the driveway. So it's not really anything that anyone is going to have access to as far as lot 2 is concerned. So there is nothing proposed at this time in the way of, I would imagine you're getting at fences or some sort of permanent demarcation. And there's nothing proposed.
I see from the plan that, it would be a little more challenging to try to utilize any of the buffer zone. But Mike, Mark, are you okay with no requirement for any fencing or anything to be a physical demarcation as we have in past applications?
I am, Mr. Chair, because the wetland towards Chase Road is separated from this project by the driveway and the swale that was constructed as part of the subdivision plan, plus the wetland that is located off-site on the west side is actually on the open space parcel. So it's not on the property of the owner. And so it is on the dedicated open space parcel. So no one would be able to work on that area because it wouldn't be part of their property.
I concur. The site is really isolated, Mr. Chairman, by the driveway, by the lot 3 property. I mean, they would have to trespass to do something. And then it becomes more of a civil matter than just a wetland matter. So it's a property issue. So the layout is fine.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mike. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
I have to recuse myself from this matter.
Okay. Okay. So no opposition, though, one recusal. So we have this passed unanimously.
I'd like to make a motion for a standard order of conditions according to the plan submitted.
Second on that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Again, Mr. Golan's recusing himself, or Kyle's recusing himself. So we have any opposition? We have a unanimous approval of the motion as seconded.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Going on to item number 3, it's a public hearing, DEP file 15-2512. It's a notice of intent for the town of Dartmouth Department of Public Works wanting to construct 2 public water supply wells and an express pumping station and rehabilitate a second pumping station, install a water main and underground utilities, and construct access roads to wells, pumping facilities. All of that is on land located at map 48, lot 6, and that's south of Old Westport Road.
Make a motion to waive the reading.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. And on behalf of the applicant,
Good evening, Dave Hickox.
hi, Dave.
Hello. Hi, how are you?
Good.
How are you, Dave?
I'm well.
Good.
So, as described in your hearing, this is as you may recall, this is the replacement of the Violet well project. We're replacing the original Violet wells. One was constructed in the 70s and 2 others in the early 90s with 2 replacement wells of equal yield. The notice of intent before you this evening is for the construction of the 2 new wells, replacement wells, as well as the infrastructure to support getting the wells up to the water treatment facility on Westport Road. Relatively straightforward project for us. One of the wells, it also includes upgrading the original Violet well pump station because the one of the wells is adjacent to the original Violet well. And the notice of intent also includes constructing a new pump station to the west of the original Violet well to support the second new well.
Okay, Mike or Mark, any comments from staff on this application?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is a pretty straightforward notice of intent as far as Conservation Commission issue. Essentially, what we have here is some fencing, construction of the well buildings, wells, and utility trenching within the buffer zone. There's no wetland that is altered as a result of this project, and it's only buffer zone work. The well with water withdrawal is not part of this application. So from a point of view, a wetland point of view, from a Concom point of view, I think it's a pretty straightforward, as I said, filing, and I have no problem with it.
Mark, would you concur?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do concur.
Thank you. And so I want to be clear, this is not included in this application. There is not a request for water withdrawal. That would come at a separate time, perhaps, but not tonight. Is that correct, Mike?
The water withdrawal would be handled under the source or approval with the Water Management Act at the state. The DPW and our consultant, the DPW's consultant is within that process now. So the water withdrawal itself is not approved by the Conservation Commission. It's handled separately by the state.
Okay. Any commissioners have any questions of the applicant? Is there any member of the audience who wishes to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. What is your pleasure?
Make a motion for a standard order of conditions according to the plan submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? No opposition, that passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Moving on to the second page of the agenda. And the first item on the second page, number 4, is a public hearing, DEP file 15-2514, a notice of intent for Arnoldus and Jeanette Giedrimus, I may be butchering the name and I'm sorry, who wish to construct a 17-foot by 36-foot in-ground pool with associated pool apron, grading and utilities, and to construct a roof drain and under drain system within the existing yard area, as well as land subject to coastal storm flowage and buffer zones to coastal beach and land under the ocean. The land is located at map 124, lot 7. That's 41 Mosher Street in Dartmouth.
Make a motion, waive the reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition?
I have to recuse myself from this one as well.
Okay, Richard. The record so notes that Richard Golan has recused himself from this matter. So, any opposition to the motion to waive the reading? None I've heard, therefore that motion passes unanimously. On behalf of the applicant.
Mr. Chair, we got a request for a continuance at a late date. There are still some issues regarding the use of Pearl Street, which is shown on the plan. So we did have a request for a 2-week continuance to the 19th meeting.
All right. Now there's a request for a continuance. Commissioners, do I entertain a motion to continue until the May 19, 2020 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, the public hearing is continued unanimously until Tuesday, May 19th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Moving on to number 5. On number 5 is a continued public hearing, DEP file 15-2491. It's a notice of intent for Brian Storer, Windsong LLC, proposing a 5-lot open space residential development on land located at map 125, lots 19, 19-1 through 19-7, and that's off of Jason Drive.
Make a motion to waive the reading?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, that motion passes unanimously. On behalf of the applicant.
Mr. Chair, we have a request for a 2-week continuance for this filing. They're still working on some details, and so they've requested to continue to the 19th meeting.
Okay, we've heard the applicant has requested a continuation until Tuesday, May 19th, 2020. I'll entertain a motion to so continue.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, that motion passes unanimously. We're moving now to the items for discussion, and the first one is bills. Do you got any?
No, we have no bills.
Well, that's easy to take. Then we have a request that's under Chapter 61, forestry land. This is land on Hathaway Road. And Mike, if you want to give us a brief rundown.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this, we discussed at the last meeting. This is a Chapter 61 request, release request, and we discussed it at the last meeting. This is a property that I had my eye on for a number of years, but a couple of things at work here. One, all the Chapter 61 requests, how the comment period or the period of action by the town has been told. So there is no time constraint on the Chapter 61. That being said, I think that in the current economic situation, I think it's unlikely that we would be able to acquire. We certainly don't have the funds to purchase this large piece at this point, and the likelihood of being able to come up with grant money in a reasonable time is a bit unlikely. So I'm inclined to recommend to the commission that the commission vote not to exercise the right of first refusal under that's afforded under Chapter 61, and just move on from there.
Any questions from any of the commissioners? I mean, I think it's just a practical issue, Mike. We could have them wait, but if that to me would smack of bad faith.
Yeah, it doesn't, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to indicate to the applicant that we have no intention of exercising our right of first refusal.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, that passes unanimously, so we can let them know.
And by the way, Mr. Chair, we did have a reviewers meeting internally with the applicant for the site, and we are going to be seeing in pretty short order a 55-plus housing on Hathaway Road. The remainder of the parcel is what is going to be released. So I anticipate seeing a pretty good sized 55-plus apartment complex sometime in the next month or so.
No, I'd be on the plus side of that, so I can approve it.
Give me both.
So the next item was a violation at the Round Hill Condominium community. And Mike, if you want to give us a little background to that.
Yes, we actually received this complaint on March 17th, the day that we shut Town Hall, the afternoon of March 17th. We received a report that there was some significant clearing going on at the Round Hill Community Corp in the so-called pumpkin patch area of Round Hill, which is, if you're going down Ray-Peck Drive, the beach road, as you're going down towards the beach, on the right, there's a condo complex as part of Round Hill located right there. That's called the pumpkin patch. And so I went down and investigated, and I did find that there was a significant amount of clearing going on in between the condo units and the marsh. There was some clearing even into the wetland, and quite a bit of clearing in the buffer zone. There are no permits for any of this clearing. It is within the resource area. It's in land subject to coastal storm flowage. Some of it is within bordering vegetated wetland, and the clearing has extended right down to the marsh, at least in one area. I did discuss this with the landscape contractors who were there, and the landscape company showed up as I was discussing this with the with the landscapers, and I stopped them. So they stopped work. I contacted Round Hill. I contacted the supervisor of Round Hill, Mr. Griffin, and informed him that there is a violation on this site. And so it's up to the commission. I think at this point, I'd recommend several things. One, I would recommend that, number one, that Round Hill community is the owner of the site, that they acquire the services of a professional wetland consultant to get a complete wetland delineation on the site, and also to then submit a restoration plan for the site. Whether the commission wants to go with an enforcement order or not, that's up to you. We could handle it with an enforcement letter to start with, or the other option, of course, is to go with an enforcement order. Clearly, a restoration plan, should be submitted for staff and commission review.
Mike, if I may, while you were discussing it with the people there and Mr. Griffin, was there any explanation?
Yes, there was. Excuse me. The landscaper told me that one of the individual owners of one of the units in the pumpkin patch is the one who contracted with the landscape company to do the clearing. Round Hill itself, Mr. Griffith at Round Hill, he did not know that the clearing was going on, so he told me, and I believe him. And so it sounded like it was a job that was hired out by one of the individuals that have a unit within the pumpkin patch. And so they, so they're responsible for the landscaper who went out and did the job.
Wow. My recommendation, Mike, would be for an enforcement order. It's obvious that the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. The person who contracted the landscaper didn't even bother to comply with the rules and regulations. Most likely, and I'm sure just at Round Hill and didn't even inform Mr. Griffin of what was going on. So I think that's insanity, but be that as it may, it is my opinion that an enforcement order be forthcoming.
Okay, if I may, can I interject? I hear what you're saying, Richard, and I totally agree that it sounds like we have a renegade unit owner. And I think maybe before we go to enforcement order, we do the enforcement letter with Mike's recommendations. Do that with, for them to get back to us before our next meeting with the engineer that they're going to engage. And if they don't do that, then I would agree to go the enforcement order, because I think what's going to happen, Richard, I think that the Round Hill Community Corp is, and we can put in that letter the name of the landscaper, Mike, the name of the landscaper, and the landscaper said he was doing it at the request of a particular unit owner. You don't have to name the unit owner, but they'll figure that out in a hurry. I think they're going to take that matter internally. And so I think to get the ball rolling, I think a letter might be good enough. This wasn't the Round Hill Community Corp that did it. That would make it different, in my view. This was a unit owner who took matters into his or her own hands and decided that they'll do what they want. And they actually, I'm sure they violated the terms of the condominium documents. So
I thought, Mike, and I'm going to withdraw my request for an enforcement order. I think what you're saying is, and what Mike O'Reilly is saying is absolutely correct. So I'm going to withdraw it. And in the event that they don't comply with the enforcement letter as recommended by you within an appropriate and proper period of time, then I think an enforcement order should be forthcoming. Let me ask one question. Will the enforcement order be against Round Hill Corporation or against the individual who
it has
did
to be
it?
the corporation, because they're the owners of the property on which the violation exists.
Yeah.
So it'll prompt some action within the community, because I want them to give us the name of the engineer and the approximate start date for that delineation and the preparation of a restoration plan. I don't expect them to have that by the next meeting, just the name and what the timetable is.
Again, I withdraw my request, and I agree with what you have suggested, you and Mike O'Reilly.
Point of clarification, Mr. Chair. If we're requesting a complete restoration plan, then an after-the-fact notice of intent isn't necessary. But if they wanted to keep some of the clearing, they would have to file an after-the-fact notice of intent. So I just wanted to point that out to see which way the commission wanted to go with this.
I want it restored.
Okay.
I want it restored because, frankly, if they had come to us with a clearing plan, we may not have approved it. So I don't intend to give somebody a fine view for violating the law.
And I don't think the Round Hill Community Corp anyways would approve it if it was gonna be, if we were gonna let it go and let them apply for an after the fact. I'd be willing to bet the HOA is not gonna let them do it anyways.
Probably not, and it would have to be the community corp that would be the applicant, but I'd still want it restored. In my view, put it back the way it was. There's no reason.
Mr. Chairman, if I could make a comment on this.
Certainly.
I understand what you're saying. The problem is that there are too many hands in the bowl right now. We have Round Hill Corporation, we have a renegade property owner, we have a landscaper who should know better.
That's another story right there.
Well,
I mean, to fully disclose, when Mike went out and saw the landscaper, it's the landscaper who was involved in the Merrimack Street violation.
Same landscaper.
Same landscaper, same person. So from my standpoint, and we have a report on that or a lack of action thereof, I just get really nervous when we try to do the soft touch in these cases, and sometimes they really get protracted. And you're saying you want restoration, I agree. But when is that restoration going to happen? These things can get protracted out. We'll be talking about this next summer. That's my concern. I understand it's Round Hill, But I think an enforcement order puts a little bit more teeth into the issue. That's just my 2 cents.
Well, that's a good comment. Now you're going back to Richard's original, and I'm not adverse to that totally. I was just thinking, I want to get this restoration done as quickly as possible. And if the enforcement order is the way to do it, I can vote in favor of that. I just felt,
I would prefer an enforcement order myself. I think it's warranted in this case.
well, then I will stand by those recommendations. It's a serious violation.
It is. It's several thousand square feet of alteration. Probably, we don't know yet. We have to get the plan. It's probably somewhere in the vicinity of 10,000 square feet of alteration, maybe more, and probably several hundred to maybe a couple of thousand feet within wetlands. But that's all to be determined. But it is a pretty significant area of clearing.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'm going to retract my retraction.
I think that's warranted, Mr. Mallon.
Double negative.
Yes, it is.
But I think
Shades of my initial relationship when I met Mike O'Reilly 22 years ago.
That's how you got on the commission, Richard.
Yes, sir.
Well,
I would agree.
I don't want to give them forever, so I agree with you because I want the restoration done correctly and quickly. I'd like the restoration done as quickly as the destruction was done.
I would agree that we need an order, not a letter. And I think we also should request in the order, the wetland delineation and a restoration plan. And we ought to put a date by which we have something in hand and a schedule. Like
what's the growing to the planting season?
Now.
Well,
Now,
until when?
Now until October 15th, but the way the climate has been, that's extended to November 10th.
Well, I'm not letting it go that long. I want the restoration in time to ruin the view. No, I'm serious. They did that so they have a summer view. Well, you know what? Restore it before the summer. I want it restored. I want the restoration plan in hand within 30 days. The restoration, I'll give them 30 days to restore it. I don't care how much it costs. They got plenty of money. They can charge that renegade unit owner.
I assure you, they will do exactly that.
Oh, I know they will.
You want a restoration plan and a delineation within 30 days?
I do.
Okay, and then the work to be completed within 30 days after that.
Restoration after the approval of the plan. I want it done within 30 days. I don't care if they gotta pay triple time and a half.
I would agree.
I agree.
Agreed.
So do we need a motion? Are we ready to have a motion?
Make a motion. I'll entertain a motion for the issuance of an enforcement order. The enforcement order to require complete delineation of the wetlands line and a restoration plan. Those should be requested and hopefully within 30 days. And the work we'll wait on the vote of the public meeting as to when they have to do it. But I'm not inclined to give them more than 30 days after we've approved the restoration plan. Put everybody on it. They got plenty of money to do that. Then this person who owns that unit will have to end up paying them back.
It's up to them how they.
And that's up to them. If they don't want to do it, that's fine. I mean, charge him, but I think they will. I totally agree. They'll actually put it on as an assessment.
Yep.
And have a lien on the unit.
I would agree that we should. So is that a motion?
It's a motion.
So can I ask a question about the motion?
You're absolutely.
So is your motion for within 30 days? So not the next meeting, but the one after that we should have a wetland delineation completed and a restoration plan submitted?
Correct.
And then assuming that all goes, that plan is approved,
Right.
then we would subsequently require the work be done within 30 days.
I want that, but I will wait for that meeting.
Yes.
to
Right.
impose it. I don't impose it on this one. So it'll be, when they bring their restoration plan, we vote on it. That'll be one of the issues I'm going to be looking for.
Okay,
So, Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, because Mike and I are going to have to write this up for you guys to approve, but delineation and restoration plan within 30 days of this vote.
Correct.
And then we're going to hold off on 30 days to restore following approval of the plan. That we're going to strike.
Correct. I'm not putting that in, Mark, because I think that should be when we vote on the approval of the restoration, and then we put it in there.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure I have what that needs to be written
You
down.
do. You said it correctly.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Thank you.
okay.
So
So-
that is out there. Can I have a second?
Yes, second.
Okay, comments. Now we have discussion on the motion. Any? None? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Passes unanimously. Now we get, it's the same landscaper, so there's a common theme here. What is it, father and son?
Father and son's landscaping.
I
Yeah,
guess
the
apple
one
doesn't
we're
fall
discussing
far
now
from the
is not father and sons, it's the one after that with non-compliance.
So, first one, we have another violation. It's at map 123, lot 67. That's on Merrimack Street. Mike?
This is actually across the street from Father and Son's Landscaping. And this is a lot that has been, it's been pretty well known that this lot is, there's majority of this lot is wetland. And the owner of the lot, who also owns the adjacent lot, went out and did some clearing on the property, and also did a little bit of trenching on the property. We had, it looks as though some of that lot may not be wetlands, but we don't know that for sure. I did speak with the owner of the property, and the owner of the property intends to keep some of the area cleared near his house. This is a relatively small violation, a lot smaller than the previous one, and so I informed the owner that the commission would likely require an after the fact notice of intent and also a wetland delineation. So it's similar to the to the Round Hill one. But the question is, does the commission want to issue an enforcement order or approach this one with an enforcement letter first and allow the owner the opportunity to hire a wetland consultant and an engineer to prepare a plan for an after the fact notice of intent?
How much wetland has been disturbed?
Not a lot, Patty. There was a little bit of trenching in the front. It looks to my eye, once it's been cleared, that the majority of the work, which is about, I'm going to guess, 60 feet by 40 feet, not very large. And that was bounded by an old stone wall. In front of that, there was some drainage, and there was a trench that was dug to kind of open up the catch basin that drains the property. So the amount of wetland alteration was just a few hundred square feet at the most.
Mr. Chair, let me ask you a question. Mike, did you say it's the exact same landscaper?
I
No,
made a
that's
mistake.
the next
I made
one.
a mistake. It's the next.
Okay,
one. It's the other
okay.
land.
I'm sorry. Okay.
The landscaper volunteered to do the work for him.
That's-
bet.
Well,
that's-
why I'm saying this, and I
Being a
think
good
maybe-
neighbor at all.
why I'm saying this, and it may be applicable to the next one, is that we're coming down hard on Round Hill, and we may not be coming down as hard on the matter that's presently on the table. And I just don't want anyone to say, why are you treating me differently than the Round Hill?
I
Or
think
vice versa.
Your point is really well taken, Richard, and truthfully, there is some benefit to being consistent, but I think part of what we have here is a magnitude of the violation. And the next matter that'll come up will have the commonality of the same perpetrator.
Mhm.
Okay, so you can save your ire for that one. But I see what Mike is saying on this one. I mean, it's a relatively small amount, and the fellow does want to keep some of it. So an after the fact filing makes sense. We may not approve it, but I mean, at least give them the shot of keeping some of it cleared. So I think, to me, I can live without going directly to enforcement.
Okay.
Is this going to require a delineation, Mike?
Yes, it will.
Okay, then I would give them a date by which the delineation has to take place.
Yeah, I agree. I think 30 days would probably be.
Yeah, I think we should, so that they know that we mean business. So I think, a delineation within 30 days is certainly doable. And I think that'd be fine. And then they have the opportunity to decide whether it's going to be a restoration. We have the opportunity to decide whether it's going to be restoration or an after the fact filing. Does that make sense or not?
No, I think it does. I mean, again, it's, I said to Richard, to me, it's an issue of magnitude. And in this one, I can definitely live with the letter, and I agree with you. Get us the delineation within 30 days, and hopefully the filing for the after the fact within 30 days. And then we decide whether we're going to agree to the after the fact filing to grant the relief sought. But we may not give him an order of conditions, but we might. So if we don't, then he has to restore.
Right.
Question, Mr. Chairman. We get a delineation. How do we approve that? What's the vehicle that we're going to approve the delineation? Are they going to have to file an RDA to get the thing approved, and then they file a notice of intent?
I think that's right.
They get the delineation and they file the notice of intent as part of the approval of that line. That's just my thought process.
I would think that they, if they're going to be filing an after the fact notice of intent, then we could review it, when the after the fact notice of intent.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's how I think we should handle it.
So you think?
Get a freebie.
Yeah.
All right.
So
I'm sorry, Patty, go ahead.
Mike, I wasn't sure that I understood or heard. I think I had trouble hearing you. So you do, and Mark as well. So you still think that we should require wetland delineation within 30 days?
Yeah, I do. I think
I would suggest 45 if we're going to take it as part of a notice of intent. I get the consultant, they flag it, and they put the notice of intent. I think 45 days is more reasonable on this one, but.
Yeah, I'm fine with 45.
Well, why don't we, let's leave it to them how they want to handle it, but I would agree with you that the right way to do it is part of the NOI. And I would say that in the letter. If they file an after the fact, they'll have 45 days on a delineation. That does make sense.
Okay. I'm okay with that. That makes sense.
I agree.
Yeah.
Agree.
Okay, so motion made to submit a letter and of the violation, notice of the violation, and give them the opportunity to present NOI and delineation within 45 days. Second on that?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? That passes unanimously. Now we move to another Merrimack Street violation, and this is at map 123, lot 76, and there's been no response to our previous letters, I guess.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Mark has been kind of taking the lead on this one. Mark, do you want to jump in and give the commission the lowdown on this one?
Yeah, we've sent several letters. I'm going to say probably 3. Each one being a little bit more severe than the last. We did get a response from them. They finally did hire Site Tech to go out and do some work out there. But that was months ago. And I'm trying to remember. We looked at this first in the summer, right? Early, late spring.
January, wasn't it?
Was it that we're talking about, 8 to 10 months of no action.
Yeah, we identified it last summer, and then I think by January, wasn't it, that we were supposed to?
It was last summer that we identified it, and we kind of turned the screws on them in January. They got Site Tech, and then they've been just sitting on it. We haven't heard from Site Tech. We haven't heard from the applicant. Mike and I have talked about this, and I think, Mike, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think we concluded that we wanted to turn this one over to Anthony Savastano for more of a court kind of deal right now. Because father and son, Dennis Almeida is the gentleman's name. He's basically thumbing his nose at us. That's all.
For the purposes of a paper trail, if we do turn it over to town council, a second enforcement order is never a bad thing if we do end up going to, taking it to court. And so I think what we can do is do both, really. We could, in a letter, we could say that the second enforcement order has been, we can copy it to town council, and the commission can make a decision. If we get no response, from the applicant, we can certainly make a decision at the 19th meeting or early in June to really, go to town council on that. I don't know. What does the commission think about that sort of arrangement?
Well, two questions, if I could, Mike. Has there been a cease and desist? Has he stopped all work on it?
Yeah, I believe he has. Have you been by, Mark? I don't think he's done anything in quite a while.
He hasn't done anything recently, but he hasn't. It's been just sitting there.
Well, if you give him a second enforcement order, there's a nice paper trail, which I'm sure Anthony would love, of him, as Mark just said, snubbing his nose at us. But your thoughts on that, Mike Keogh?
Well, I as an attorney, you love to have that paper trail to present, to show the judge that you've already been lenient. You've already given ample opportunity, because that's what the judges like to do, give people a chance to fix the problem. And in my view, I think that is the correct approach. But that being said, I think we better make sure we have documented everything we've done to date. And I would emphasize the penalty provisions for this fellow and say,
Yes.
you know what? We've been incredibly lenient with you, and you have disregarded us completely. So, and you CC that letter to Anthony, okay?
Right.
Town council is being notified on this. There will be no further warnings. We'll go right to court with this.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's a
I
good
would
way to
make
put
it
it.
very
Yeah.
clear. Make it very clear, and should we also require from them a response to our violation order within a certain date?
I think next meeting. I want that response before our next meeting.
Okay, I agree. I think you have to tell them, this is your second enforcement order, and by May 19th, if we don't hear from you, and what do we want from them by May 19th?
Well, I think what we want for them is to come in with the restoration plan.
Then we have to say that in the letter. We want a restoration plan by May 19th. And if not, then this will go to town council with, and you'll be responsible for whatever fees there are, legal fees and daily fees accruing.
Well, we can quote, I think we can quote our own bylaw relative to the daily penalty. And it says up to, I'm going to go right to the up to.
Yep.
I'm not going less than that.
Nope.
And I want to make sure we get this done before the renegade condominium owner at Round Hill sues him and attaches everything he's got.
The penalty provisions, I believe, were in a couple of the earlier letters that we had sent out to Mr. Almeida. So that's already been.
I do it again.
I'm not sure that's
I
the
would
case.
reiterate.
I would- Yep.
Oh, absolutely.
The first correspondence relating to the enforcement order, just make it an exhibit and attach it to the second one.
Yep, you attach all of your previous communication. Say,
Yep.
we've been more than lenient with you.
Mhm.
Try to accommodate you.
Or is this going to be the the governor of Rhode Island, knock it off. That new Mike. Your governor seems to have a new expression that's going from coast to coast. Knock it off.
Yeah. T-shirts and everything.
That's right. Yep.
I saw a billboard today. Knock it off.
Knock it off.
I was gonna put New York State plates on my car.
Well, you would have been pulled over.
Yeah, you would be pulled over.
Mhm.
So,
Well, last I looked, there were federal funds to build the damn highway.
All right.
so do we need a
Go ahead.
motion? Do we need a motion for this?
Yeah,
Saying that, so
We should.
a motion for a second
third or
enforcement.
fourth letter. I don't even know how many, it's third time, Mark?
Yeah, I think it's the third, maybe the fourth. I don't have the file in front of me, but
So
Well,
whatever
number it is, we're gonna.
Whatever number it is.
Yep.
Yep. And required, they have to submit a restoration plan by May 19th, or it'll go to town council
Yep, and make sure Anthony Savastano has a
with,
copy.
and with all the, and put in it all the
Priors.
fees, all that stuff.
Okay.
Second on that?
Yeah,
Second.
second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously.
Hey, Mark, you and I put a priority on that one for Thursday morning. We can work on that.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, I have no other comments, so unless anyone else does, I'll entertain.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more. It didn't quite make the agenda since we're talking violations. On Thursday last, I received an anonymous complaint about excavation at 33 Westwood Drive. I went out, took a look at it. The gentleman had a moderately sized excavator out there, and he was working not in wetlands, but within the buffer zone. And he had dug up several thousand square feet of land. So I told him, cease and desist. I wrote him a letter, had to get to it quickly, telling him that he needed to file with us, get the delineation done, and get a consultant on board to figure out what their next steps are. At this point, I'm not looking for a vote. We needed to respond pretty quickly on this one because he was actively working. And so that's where we stand right now. My last conversation with the wife was yesterday. At the site visit, I spoke to the husband. And they are proceeding. We will keep on top of this one, and there will be more to come on the 19th. This is just an FYI for the commissioners.
I'm sorry, Mark, I just maybe didn't hear you. Did they cease and desist?
They have to date, yes.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Mark. So we'll get an update on that
Yes.
at the next meeting. I would also request, if we could, to have an update on all the violations that we have on a list. Like, what's the update? I don't think we've heard some of that for quite some time. I think there's probably still some. Are there still some outstanding violations that we need to pay attention to? People haven't done the work.
Yes, we are staying in contact with them. I don't know, there's maybe a half dozen of them.
Thereabouts.
Maybe
There's some that are just very problematic. They're not really going away. Some of them are
Kyle,
still.
why don't you shut off your microphone?
Pardon?
No, Kyle.
Oh. Yeah, there's probably about a half dozen of them, Patty. They're still kind of active.
My plan was to kind of get some of those finalized this spring, but this whole crazy situation with working remotely has kind of balled everything up.
Yeah, I can't remember. I updated the spreadsheet. I want to say late January or late February. It was right before the COVID thing, and we've had two, Round Hill and 33 are the two new ones that we've had.
But maybe at the next meeting or the meeting after that, we could have an update on all the ones that are still on the schedule, still on the list that are still outstanding.
Yeah, we can do that.
Because, I think, as I've said before, I think a lot of people figure will go away.
They're
And I
going to
wanna
wear
be-
us down, Patty.
What's that?
They're going to wear us down. We'll forget about them.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
likely.
Forget about them.
That'll be the
Not
day.
likely. So I would just like to, maybe every other meeting or something, just have an update on things that are just sort of dribbling along so that we can deal
Come
with.
down hard.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can do that.
yeah.
I think we should probably almost try to think about a methodology stepping forward, kind of like, the constant contact where they get email notices, like I get like 3 or 4 a day from Joe Biden. You can just keep
Sarah
on.
Reed.
Like, so how are you doing so far? Have you gotten this done yet? And then tomorrow they get 3 or 4 more. And, I think what that,
Yeah, we do need to develop a process and procedure for these. And I know that the COVID thing screwed everybody up, but
it is. But
Those who got sick.
I think we probably need to make sure that people don't think that we've forgotten them or that they're unloved.
well, the other thing I found is a lot of folks are using the stay in place as an excuse for why things didn't get done. And I know that a lot of engineers are still working.
Yeah.
They've been out around our neighborhood with their, laser transoms and everything. They're working. So it's
Yeah.
just a matter of the people that don't want to pay them want to use that as an excuse why they can't get anyone to do anything. And, if I had a nickel for every time somebody said that the particular engineer that they've called hasn't gotten back to them, that's not my experience. That's not most of my clients' experiences. How come they managed to get through? Amazing, isn't it? Because I bet if they wanted to put a pool in their backyard or they wanted to build a house, the plans would be in the office before we hung the phone up. But because they have to do something to correct their own mistake, they really don't want to pay for that.
I think we should have it's their responsibility to get it done. So if they say, well, the engineer that we called isn't getting back to me, say, well, that's not our problem. It's your problem. Call another engineer.
I agree.
And I think that needs to be stated. So in perhaps any subsequent communications with people who are in violation, we have to make that clear that we're not accepting that as a reason,
Correct.
as an excuse or a
I
reason.
agree. It's not a good one for me anymore.
No, and perhaps even in the letters, the violation enforcement orders or letters, any of these that go out, that ought to be stated in there.
Well, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
So in other words, sorry, don't come back and talk to us in 30 days and say, gee, I couldn't get it done. Like the fees start piling up and it goes further. So I think we probably ought to put that as a standard clause in enforcement letters or orders.
You know as well as I do that the defense, especially of the one that we're going to issue the second enforcement order, is I've been trying, but because of the strange world we're living in now, I couldn't get any response, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to use it as a defense amongst others. But I agree with you, Patty.
I don't care.
Knock it off. I agree.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't care if they complain and whine about it. I just, I just think we need to be clear up front and say, you're not going to get away with that.
And I think it has to be really clear. Your point is well taken. It should say, this is your obligation. We're going to hold you accountable. And if you're having trouble communicating with a professional of your choice, choose another, because that will not be considered a legitimate excuse.
Right. And I think that ought to be written in
Okay.
as a matter of, in for all of these.
You're tough, Patty. You're just tough.
I'm old.
I didn't say
Well, there's
that.
going to be a 55-plus community going in Hathaway.
Hey, Richard, get off my lawn.
Okay.
So can that go in the other enforcement orders that we voted upon tonight? Or do we have to go back and?
No, you can go in.
No.
I think that's a
Yep.
good standard
Mhm.
phrase or, thought
Yeah.
to put in all of them because, that's a pretty common, I think what it really comes down to, Patty, it's not a matter of they can't communicate with the engineer. It's a matter of they don't
want to.
engineer won't take the next step until they get paid.
Right,
Okay.
Right.
So that's why nothing gets done because they don't send any money to the engineer.
right.
Hey,
It's-
Mike, what you just said earlier, that the wording would be very helpful. That was really good. If you could put that in an email,
Yeah.
and then that way we can add it, because I didn't write it down, but it was rolling off your tongue so well. That,
Sometimes when I get it on my
you
rants,
to
I
have
say
it.
things that it's amazing. Then I usually have to go back the next day and apologize, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, I know all about that.
So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. If there's nothing new.
So moved.
So second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? None. Meeting adjourned.